What is up, y'all? JPTV 3000. This is the CVA pump. It's got 3 large diesel tanks, so when you're out on location and you're running this pump, someone needs to be fueling it, or at least checking the fuel. You'll fill this up every 2.5 hours or 3 hours. With those 3 large size fuel tanks, you fill it up, let it get to about half, fill it up again, and keep it on no less than half to no less than 1/3 of a tank. So if something happens, you've got time to troubleshoot options. Size of your tires are going to be 24/5, standard oil field size for those roads. Aggressive tread, as you can obviously see. Ultra low sulfur diesel. This is your ladder, so you can access the buckets and stuff that we keep up here. I'm not letting the ladder down right now. I already let the ladder down for the controls. We're gonna go look at those in a minute. Pipe racks to put your pipes on. You got one on this side, one on the other side. You got your landing gear with your platform on the bottom, so you don't have to put any boards down there. This right here is your power terminals in here. And this right here is your power switch. For people who've never run one of these, you have to make sure, that's why it's written on there, because you have to make sure there are actually two disconnects in there, where you can disconnect power from either side, or you can run one side and disconnect it from the other side. Motor, 56 quarts. This is I forget the name of this. Damn, I used to know. It's not a I think this is a DD16 Detroit engine. 56 quarts, 1540 is what we put in here. Semi-coolant, we use the red. And it's not as big as a frac pump. I might go look at that one if I haven't already. Showing y'all that. This here is your hydraulic tank. This right here is your fluid end. This is a Kerr. This is a Kerr Octoplex. So that way you kind of know what you're dealing with, what you can be looking at for in the oil field. This is your low pressure side. So how this works: with your low pressure side, your water comes in through here. It gets pushed up, and as the plungers are going in and out, it's pushing the valves open and close. So as the valves go open, the water gets pressurized, the plunger comes in, and they open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close at a certain speed, depending on how much rate or how much pressure you're trying to get. This right here is your bleed offs. So you can bleed it back going to your tub. That line right there, there's one on both sides. It goes up underneath here. Where's it at? All right, see that line right there? Goes up underneath here, comes back out. That's the same line, goes back into your tub. That's your bleed off. That little red thing, that's it's a bleed off. So if you have back pressure on it, you can't get it off, you can get it off through there. We're gonna go up there, I'm gonna show you the tub, explain some stuff. This is an inlet valve, so that you can pump water directly in here. You can pump it straight down into, so like if they wanted to pump water direct, you could just bring the water in here and pump it direct with it being gravity fed. But also, what you can do with this is you can pull water this way. That's one of the great things about the CVAs. When they made them with every option. Like there's a manual valve up in there. I don't know if y'all can see it. That's the manual valve right there in the middle. Right there in the middle of the screen. These are hydraulics. Manual valve. This is for your, I think that's for a bleed off or a grease line. That right there. This is your grease trap. So as grease is coming out, in and out. Hold on, man. I need to get up here and show y'all this stuff. Hold on. So so you actually know what I'm talking about. All right, we're gonna go back at this again. This is my high pressure side. So my water's coming out of my Kerr. It's coming in through here. This valve has to be open. It's right here. That's your pop off. So if you have an overpressure, something happens, or if that's not set right, you'll start to see water coming out of there. It's right here. All right. This is your cooling fans for your hydraulics. Hydraulics come in there, fluid gets cooled. Now you got another RPM transducer. Those two little red things you see right there in the middle, that's what those are. So like every rotation and revolution, you got one for your turns, and then you got one for the amount of power in pressure that you have. This is your power in side. Power in, power in, fluid in, fluid in. You have different makers of fluid ends from SPM, Kerr, Dragon. There's somebody else, I can't remember the name of them. That's for your AC system. This says dual AC system. There's a reason for that. So this sucker can run Texas, or this sucker can run Alaska, Northern Slope, Anchorage, all of that stuff, or North Dakota. This is a Canadian made system, so it works great in the winter. It's older. It needs to be either reconditioned or replaced. It's got plenty of lights and stuff on it. That's your grounding cable. Some places are more sticklers about having those than others. Put that sucker up. Alright, these right here are your greasers on the CVA. Now these work differently from the SPM and Dragon style. With these, they go in behind your packing nut. Now with these, that right there is your packing nut. See the little thing with the holes on it? That's your packing nut. So the greaser actually goes in behind that, so you don't have to take that loose when you're doing maintenance on it. That is beautiful. I love that, because the other style pump, I'll look to see if I got some video of it somewhere and show y'all what I mean and the differences between the two, and you can see why it really makes a difference. Once again, pop off, transducer, manual, a manual pressure. Make sure it don't fall. That'll suck. Oh, how'd you get hurt? Oh, fell at work. Fell at work doing what? Nothing? What do you mean you fell at work doing nothing? Doesn't make any sense. And also same thing, you got another valve where you can go direct into here. So for example, let's say you were gonna be pumped by a third party, is gonna pump fluid to you. In that situation, you've got a bunch of grease on there. I should have wiped that off. Make sure I ain't got grease on me. I'm climbing all up on stuff. Okay. Now where was I? All right. Make sure your tag lights work, your tail lights work. That's very important going down the highway. This is an MSI. That's the other MSI. MSI, Kerr, SPM, Dragon. It may be a fifth, but I don't know. And this side, you have the exact same thing, because it's a twin, so it's got identical. Also, just to show y'all something, because I've worked with this pump enough, but not as much as that twin outside. You have to grease these. This got grease fittings on the inside of it. You have to grease it here. 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 And your brake, your brake calipers. Does this one have a brake on it? Might be on the other side. I'm trying to think. I know this one breaks when you come out of gear. But anyway, this is your two greasers. Like I said, it's a twin, so you got grease units for both sides. Make sure you have to keep those full. You're gonna be filling those on the twin on the CVA. You're gonna be filling those 2 to 3 times a shift. This is your toolbox. You're gonna need air hoses, these, a couple of hammers, and then these are your tools for taking stuff apart. I got some other videos that I'll have to go find, put them together with this, and let you see. And the same thing is on this side as on the other side. Like this is a massive piece of equipment right here. And these are your inlet valves on this side. You got the same thing over there on the other side. So it gives you options on what you can do with your water. The more of these you have, the more options you have that you can do with your water. This right here is a bleed off. So when it freezes, you can bleed the water out of the system, methanol it up, hydraulic tank, hydraulic pumps. All right, now we're gonna go up into the controls. This video is a lot longer than I wanted it to be. Make sure your fire extinguishers are charged, and make sure you have independent fittings for this piece of equipment. With this piece of equipment, you need all of these different fittings, because you don't know what you may be hooking up to pull your water from. You must have this in line. Show you what I'm talking about. Crap. This one has one for the bigger size. This one you put it in the hose. So this one it'll go in the hose just like this, or it'll go in the hose like that. And you'll make sure that it's facing make sure it's facing like that. And these are all 3-inch, this is 3-inch cam lock, 3-inch hammer-on. Hammer-ons, you hammer them on. Cam locks, you do this. Make sure you have at least one of these, a female to female. A female to female is, a male to male and a female to female. So, and make sure you have one of these, a hammer-on to a female and a hammer-on to a male, which is thread to hammer-on, thread to, that's a hammer-on to a, crap, I can't remember what they call that. Make sure you have these, because companies require you to have the cam locks lockable, and this goes on here like that, and it stays on there, keeps these right here from coming loose. Make sure you lock. Make sure you lock everything back. Alright, now let's go look at the controls and the tub. I've probably made this video already. Make sure you throw your trash away before you store the equipment. Now that we're still talking about the pump, I want to tell you a couple things in case you're thinking about getting into the oil field. In case you're thinking about getting into the oil field, I'm going to show y'all the inside of this. This pump is not the cleanest. And the main reason is because it depends on who runs it and how they take care of it when they're running it and how they store it. What storing it means is when it comes back to the yard and it's not going to be used, how we do the equipment. It's what we do. It's a process that we go through. It's called storing the equipment. And storing the equipment, what you will do is you'll drain all of the fluids out. Hold on just a minute. What you'll do when you're storing the equipment is you'll drain all of the fluids. Fluids will be whatever we pumped. That'll be drained into the wash bay, into the sump pump system. All that stuff will be drained out of it. It'll be left open. That way the fluid head that I was showing you earlier can dry out good and thoroughly, and it doesn't have any chemicals that could set up, doesn't have any H2S in it. All that stuff has to be cleaned, pressurized, blown out. And that's for safety and also for the longevity of the equipment. It's very important that you keep your equipment physically clean and aesthetically clean. And you may find working at certain places that their standards aren't clean or a little bit different, but you want to make sure you can keep your floor clean. When you have downtime, wipe down your equipment, wipe down the controls. Don't use brake clean, because you may have stuff in here like what's written in the walls in here. Some of the other pumps, I have stuff written permanently so that nobody can take it out and nobody can remove it. I've got formulas and stuff written down. I've also got formulas and stuff written down in a notepad. So some things you don't want to erase. I'm going to show you the controls. I'm trying to think about what else to talk about. Make sure when you're storing the equipment that you're getting all the trash out. Make sure you don't leave any food in here, because then you get mice, rats, insects, and you don't want that. Make sure you clean your tools. Put your tools back. Make sure you put everything back in its place where it needs to be. That way when the next person comes in or they get ready to take the equipment out the location, boom, they got it right there. They can go to it, pick it up, everything's ready to go, put caps back on if things have been left off. But usually when it's going to be stored, it's going to be drained, left for a day or so, or it'll get drained on one shift and then get put back together, put out on the line, which is up against the fence, in a ready to go to work position. That way nobody has to go try to find this. Everything's already on the pump. When you're a pump operator, all of your equipment, when you're fracking, it's different, because the pump operator usually isn't maintaining the frac equipment, because there's 12 to 14 horsepower, sometimes 10, 8, depending on the size of the frac, how much pressure they want and what they're doing. Make sure you keep plenty of water, rags. Make sure your first aid kit is actually stocked with what you need. Make sure you got your eye wash for getting stuff in your eyes. Make sure you have safety glasses, gloves. Make sure you have you don't really, I mean, this is a tear down sheet. It's something that you might use, but usually once you've worked on these enough, you kind of know what is what. But this is good to have though. I may take a picture of this and save it for later. Yeah, I'll probably take a picture of this right here, save it for later, because this is a Kerr. This is an MSI. Yeah, I'm gonna take a picture of this, save it for later. Plus, that's good stuff to have in your head, so that when you're putting your packing and your fluid head back together, you make sure you put everything in the right order that it goes in. If you don't, it's going to leak, or your pump's going to cavitate. And it's happened to me. It's happened to everybody that's ever worked here. Anybody that's ever worked in frac, you're going to have that time when you're confident in yourself, you know what you're doing, or it may come a time when you're not sure what you're doing and you think you put stuff in there, and you'll see somebody else check what you're doing. Because when you put that circle back together, it has to go through a process of them. It has to go through a process of being checked, and they got to pump through it to make sure that it pumps right. And if they see any pressure spikes, like the pressure go up and down, like there's water like instead of water doing this, which ignore that sound I made, because when you're next to the fluid head, I should have also explained that when you're next to the fluid head, you should not be able to hear. You shouldn't be able to hear that. You shouldn't be able to hear. Not only that, you shouldn't be able to put your finger or your hand on it and feel a tapping unless it's just the crush cap, the looseness between the crush cap and the cap that goes on it. Because there's a crush cap that goes on the inside, then there's a 3-inch cap that goes on behind that you have to hammer on. And you can only hammer them so far, and you may still have some distance. And that distance is between that cap and where that metal is on the other end of that crush cap. And it may move about that much, and you may hear that tapping. You may hear just that tapping. That's not that big of a deal, because, hold on a minute, because I need to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, this is one style of crush cap. Now what I'm talking about is this rubber ring. Where it stops at is one of two places. It stops here. Make sure y'all can see that. It stops here, or it stops here. Now in between there may be just a little bit of distance. Just a little bit of distance. It may be just a little bit of distance, maybe about that much, where it'll, every time the pump strokes. So every time it does that, it's like that little bit of distance. You may hear that tapping. But I've been working in the oil field long enough. I've done frac. I've done pump down long enough to where I know the difference between this and a valve. And when you have a valve tapping, usually the neoprene right here is a valve. Now, you don't really hear valves tapping because this neoprene, which is this part right here, tends to go up against the metal. Because if you ever hear this sucker tapping, you got something horrible going wrong. But usually you're gonna notice a difference in pressure. You're gonna notice a difference in rate. For example, let's say you're pumping at 3 barrels a minute on one side. 3 barrels a minute on one side, and one gear that you've pumped on for an entire 24-hour period, you pumped 3 barrels. You've been pumping on one side with 3 barrels. Okay, let's back that up, because you're not gonna be doing that, because you'll just end up wearing. You just end up prematurely wearing. Plus, on a frac pump, you would want 3 barrels out of that big frac pump, because that's a lot easier. Out of the twin, you don't want 3 out of one side. You really want to split to 3 to 1.5 on each side. But make sure when you're installing these, make sure to look at this neoprene ring. Make sure that it doesn't have any damage, cuts, or indentions in it, because when you're installing this, you don't want anything that will keep it from getting a seal, because it's just a spring that pushes it back up and down. That's it. So the water pushes through here, the spring on top, the water gets pushed through, comes up, goes back down, comes up, goes back down, comes up, goes back down, comes up, goes back down. And that's how that works. Topping off the coolant, because we are done with that. Make sure you put your cap back on. Make sure your cap actually tightens and it doesn't just spin. So I think it was John that put one on. He said that it was tight, but it ended up blowing off and blowing oil all over the place. Came in to work the next day, like there's a bunch of diapers on the ground. I'm like, what the heck happened? The cap came off of this right here came off of the UE twin, which is the electronic. It's the nicer twin with the dual inside cab, air conditioning. It's a great piece of equipment if you are running something for a long period of time. It's really what you want. The CVA is okay. It's just where they set stuff up at is it's not the best ergonomics, and the CVA is extremely loud. The CVA is loud, and the reason that the CVA is loud because the CVA's cab is right over. And I'm gonna use y'all to be my eyes, because I need to use this light to check for some leaks. I think I saw. All right. So for all of y'all that are out there doing whatever it is that you're doing, you're gonna be my eyes and ears while I check my equipment. That needs to be cleaned out pretty bad, because that's cooling and air restriction. So this pump needs to be cleaned real good. I've been on furlough, so I haven't had a chance to run this pump, and I haven't run it for a while. To like come through here, look, analyze everything, see what it's looking like, because I like to wash it really, really good and then put it on the test tank so I can see what is what. See any leaks or anything that might be starting to chafe. Oh no. Okay. All right. Right there, one of your lights. This is your turbo. This is a DD15 or 16. I don't think this is a DD18. Because I don't think you can get in between two DD18s or DD20s. It'd just be one motor. It'd be like a horsepower. This is a twin pump. And what I'm looking for leaks and stuff. I'm gonna end up putting this pump on the test stand, running some fluid through it, pressuring it up. Probably gonna do about 3,000, 3 to 4,000, 10, 15 minutes, call it a wrap. Make sure everything pumps, runs good, there's no leaks. I may leave it on there for an extended period of time, but I think it's getting close to lunch. Make sure you watch where you're stepping and the stuff that you're leaning up against, because you can't put your foot everywhere in here. So fire this sucker right here up. I'll probably show y'all the firing up the pump process procedure. I might fire it up in here before I go to lunch, have it running, get it good warmed up, because while it's running, since how they've done some maintenance on it, when you fire it up, you don't want to leave it off running in case something happens or something didn't get tightened up. You don't want to leave it running by itself. But versus if it was any other day, they hadn't done any maintenance, you know, you're gonna leave it running like we do during the winter time. Leave it running, go to lunch, come back, it's still running, you know, finish going through your checks and stuff. But yeah, we need to get rolling. So JPTV 3000, shout out to everybody. Stay tuned for more. Peace.